This is my 1999 K2500 Chevy Suburban, and much like a lot of the projects that I tend to take on, it's old, it's ugly, and it has a big block under the hood. It's powered by an L29 454, it's backed up by a 4L80 4-speed automatic, and we're slowly fixing it up to make it a little bit more reliable and a lot more fun. Some of the changes that we've made include swapping from an NP 246 to a 241 manual floor shift transfer case, updating the interior with bucket seats and a 99-02 Silverado center console, and my personal favorite, swapping out the rear 14 bolt for a Dana 70 Chevy Express van axle that's 5 inches wider and greatly improves the looks and handling of this 20-year-old SUV. But today we're going to be making one repair that's going to drastically alter the path that this build is going to take. So the part that I'm going to be installing today is really simple, and it's not even the point of the video today. I'm just going to be swapping out the rear door handle that goes on the barn door on the back of the Suburban on the driver's side. Now this will take me like 5 minutes to install, and I think the part was like 15 bucks from Amazon. That's really not the point of the video today. The point is that that door handle right there, and me replacing it, actually represents a really big change in the direction of this build, because I actually wasn't planning on keeping the barn doors for very long at all, because I wanted to turn this GMT 400 Suburban into an Avalanche. Now, if you guys know what a Chevy Avalanche is, you'll know it's an SUV that GM made in the early 2000s, and it's actually based on a Chevy Suburban. You know, it has the same frame, engine, drivetrain. They made them in 1500s and 2500s. They had 4 doors, 2 rows of seats, but instead of a 3rd row like the Suburbans had, it's got basically a bed on the back, kind of like the El Camino of SUVs. Now, they did have this cool feature where the back wall of the cab could actually fold down and you could put like a full sheet of plywood back there. And I didn't really care about that feature. I just kind of wanted to make like a hardtop version or a hardback version of the Avalanche in a GMT 400 truck. Now, the one distinct feature I think that makes an Avalanche work is it kind of has that roll bar looking racerback thing that goes between the back of the cab and the bed, and it has a hard tonneau cover on there as well. And I think that kind of makes it all blend together. Now, clearly they didn't make Avalanche in the OBS Chevy era, you know, the 88s to 98s. They made plenty of Suburbans, and I've had this plan forever where I thought it would look awesome if I did the conversion, and I had a very specific way that I wanted to do it, because I have seen a lot of people attempt it basically with a Sawzall and what equates to sheets of plywood and some fiberglass, and that's not how we were going to do it. I wanted it to look OE. So let me kind of quickly show you what my thought was and how I wanted to transform the Suburban into an Avalanche. So the plan, more or less, I was going to cut across the roof right behind the second door, cut across the pillars at the very back right there, take that whole roof section and just kind of throw it away. And then I was going to find at the junkyard a 4-door Chevy truck cab and cut the roof off, basically just the roof skin, cut it all the spot welds, and do the same thing with the whole back structure, and just kind of piece it together in a factory way with everything that we've got here. So you get a factory truck rear glass, you know, that little seam right there that's kind of an angle, that would get replaced. And then on the bed here, what will become the bed, the top of the rail on a Chevy K2500, which I'm actually not sure how it is, so if you have one, somebody do me a favor, measure and tell me down in the comments the distance from the top of the bed side to this center of this body line right there. I am curious to know how high that is, but it's probably somewhere up in here. So we'll graft a pickup bed side over it like that, and then on the rear end here, all we'll do is just get a regular old truck tailgate, put it in there, and then I would redo some of the inner sheet metal to make it look more like a bed, because the Suburbans have a bunch of weird sheet metal on the inside. Over the last 6 to 7 years, and especially over the last couple of months, I have had a ton of time to think about exactly how I'm going to pull this build off. I've planned out where I'm going to cut the spot welds on the donor cab, where I'm going to cut the bed sides apart from the donor bed, and how I'm going to put this thing back together, and even on the interior, how I'm going to get the trim to all go back together like a factory build. And I feel like I've got the execution down, you know, pat. I don't have to do any custom sheet metal work because I mean, I don't know how to use an English wheel. I don't do the bead roller. I don't do any of that stuff. There's lots of talented guys out there. I can build exhausts all day long, but I cannot do custom sheet metal work, and I don't really want to. And that was kind of the premise behind this project, is I'm using factory parts from different vehicles to make this happen. But the one thing I hadn't counted on or seen was, how is this even going to look? I mean, I've got the execution down, but I had no idea how it was actually going to look. So I started out with my little Microsoft Paint, like weird photo hack, and that looked okay, but it really didn't give me the full picture. So we then had a family member do us an illustration, and that kind of helped me wrap my head around it a little bit better to visualize what this thing's going to look like when it's done. And then finally, I actually found some pictures on Facebook of somebody who did, from what I can tell, the same exact thing that I wanted to do using factory parts, you know, a factory rear glass, factory tailgate, I think. They modified the bed sides. And I gotta say, I hate how it looks. This is totally not a knock on the way that they did the construction, because from what I can tell, it looks like an awesome job that they did. They painted it up and it looks great. It looks like a factory vehicle, but the proportions of the Suburban of this era are just all wrong for a Suburban conversion, in my opinion. And really what it comes down to is the placement of the wheel in the quarter panel. So right now the back wheel is, there's practically no space between the door and the fender opening, and then there's like a mile, I think this is the same distance as a long bed Chevy truck, between the wheel opening and the rear bumper. And just kind of when you step back proportionally, it looks off. It looks like the wheel is so far forward. So when you cut that chunk of the cab out, it just looks all out of whack. So I think the only way, I'm not sure, I might eat my words here in another 6 or 8 months, but the only way I think we could do this to make it look right would be to stretch the wheelbase, add a little bit of material in between the door and the wheel opening, and then shrink that. So basically it's going to turn into, from here back, like a Chevy Blazer, because the GMT 400 Blazers had a lot more space here and a lot less space there. So the question is now, what's going to happen to the Suburban on the channel? Because let's face it, the only reason why I bought a Suburban instead of like a crew cab pickup, what I really kind of wanted is, well, number one, price, so 2 reasons. And number 2, because I've wanted to do a Suburban conversion on a GMT 400 forever, and I just can't get rid of this idea in the back of my mind. And usually when that happens, I've got to do it. But I have to admit right now, I am really, really discouraged about how this is going to look, because on those pictures, guys, that's exactly what I was going to do, but it doesn't look how I thought it would. Just the proportions are all wrong. So for now, we're going to shelf the Suburban idea, but the Suburban itself is going to stick around the channel. Now, I'm not making any long-term promises. Maybe we still will do that conversion if I just can't get rid of the idea, because there's one thing that was missing in those pictures, and that was the little racerback / roll cage fairing, whatever thing that you want to call it, that goes behind the cab and over the bed sides. And that might be just enough to save this build. But for now, that part of the project is getting shelved. But we are going to continue on with our suspension and drivetrain upgrades, because, well, I've got some parts already on the way, and we are too deep in this project to let it go away. I have some spindles right here. This is going to be central to the disc brake conversion that we're doing up front. I mean, it's not a disc brake conversion. We already have disc brakes, but we're installing 2500 HD brakes from a GMT 800 truck. So we're installing newer disc brakes. They've got 2 pistons. I think the rotors are larger. We've got a bunch of suspension work we're going to be doing at the same time. And then we got to talk about performance, because this is a big block, and just like ugly truck, we need to make it have a lot more power. Now, I know that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to install a big engine, big upgrades in a heavy Suburban, but you guys, if you watch a lot of YouTube, you might have seen Chris Stapleton's channel. I think Stapleton42 is his handle. He's got the LS Escalade, he's got the Uncle Rob Suburban, and then if you've watched his videos, he has an OBS Chevy Suburban, kind of like this, and I'm pretty sure he's got himself a Blueprint Engines big block. And who knows, maybe I'll do a call out on Stapleton or something like that. We can build our big blocks together. Who knows, I might just be dreaming, but I think it would be awesome to have a fast, big Suburban, because I also ran across something that was really cool. I think it was an old Motor Week or something from the mid to late 90s. Turns out Lingenfelter built a couple of these Suburbans, and they put like a 600 some cubic inch marine big block in these things. 4L80 transmission, and they were just rippers. I think it did a 6-second or less 0 to 60 time, which is not fast by today's standards, but for the mid 90s, that was just awesome. So We've got ourselves a big block Chevy, we've got a 4L80, we've got a bulletproof drivetrain, and I love building turbocharged stuff, so maybe, I'm not promising anything, but maybe we'll build ourselves a turbo Suburban. I'll have to come up with another clever name like a Turburban or something like that, but whew, that's for another day. Today I'm going to get my door handle installed, and that's going to bring this video to a wrap. So I got to say thank you guys for watching. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think about this whole Suburbalanche idea, because at the end of the day, it's still in my head and I can't make it go away until I make it materialize in the real world. So I don't know, I'm discouraged, but I want to do it. It's like one of those weird things I'm torn right now. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for the support. You guys are awesome. We'll catch you next time.